Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Unspoiled, covering Raybearer, a novel by Jordan Ifueko, chapters 1 through 4. In these chapters, we get dropped into a world where there is a little girl who is a prisoner in her own invisible house. It is a very strange scenario. Welcome to Unspoiled.
Akabiole, wundesa mina walio. Akabiole, wundesa mina walio. Wundesa na, wundesa mina walio. Akabiole, wundesa mina walio. Akabiole, wundesa mina walio. Wundesa na.
Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha.
I'm RoShawn.
Okay, we're diving into a new series. It's step one of our big new project.
It's been a while. Well, I guess it's been a while since we had a step one. I mean, Ted Lasso was the most recent, but we're already in 2 seasons. So this is the first new book for us in a minute.
Yeah, very while. I'm well spoken for those who are just joining us for Unspoiled for the first time.
Very wild.
Expect a very wild quality of discourse from me in the future.
Already setting the bar up real high on the first episode, you guys. But yeah, we haven't done any books since we've been doing Dresden and Song of Ice and Fire, which we're several books into. So this was fun to get into a new world. I wanted to say what I was starting to say before we were recording was I shared the cover of the hardback that I'm reading in the chat here in the Crowdcast, and I just wanted to shout out Sydney for that amazing art that they did for this project. It is just stunning. It's
Sydney is a very dear friend of mine who was a maid of honor at my wedding. And they are an artist. They were doing tattoos for a while and murals. They are just very, very talented. Yeah. And I swear to God, I texted them and was like, hey, do you have time to do a logo? I don't need it for a couple weeks. And they were like, oh yeah, I can do that over the weekend. And I sent them the book cover and I sent them there's a service out there that I can't remember the name of it, but it's basically you get a box with a sort of newer YA book and merch that's made to go with the book, and it's a monthly thing, and it's meant to be promotional of new stuff that's being published. And Raybearer had a deal with them, and they sent out the mask that the Emperor is wearing, the lion head mask. They sent out a kind of version of that, and it was the only image that I could find of what the mask was supposed to look like. So I took that and sent it to Sid with the cover and was like, the mask is, somewhat significant if you can work that in there. Otherwise, just do what you want to do. And they sent that logo to me, I feel like 4 hours later. It was just, they did it so fast. And I was just staring at it like, are you kidding me? It was just so beautifully done. So, I'm really not sure how much fan art there is out there for this series because I tend to use that per episode. And I'm hoping that there is some, but I'm not going to be sad if we have to just post it with the show logo because that logo is just
it deserves to be posted over and over and over again.
Yep. So tell me about how you're feeling with these first chapters and the new universe, and of course I have to do the obligatory, how does it feel to have a Black main character, RoShawn?
Kids, I have not read hardly any current fantasy. I have not read really any fantasy written by Black authors. I started Parable of the Sower. It was very good. It's in fucking tense. And quite frankly, it was too much for me at the time. So I haven't finished it yet.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't read Kindred, but I started watching Kindred because it's on Hulu.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to stop because, again, super intense. And have you checked it out at all?
I haven't. No, I've been sort of feeling like it seemed intense, and I am not in a headspace for it. So I've been just like, I'll get to it.
It's very intense. And also, I had a real weird reaction to it. And it turned out my reaction was very similar to some other people that are like contemporaries of mine, same age group, same sort of like background.
Mm-hmm.
My understanding is the TV show Kindred is really following very close to the book, which I haven't read, but watching the show, I couldn't get past the main character, and I don't want to spoil anybody who hasn't watched it, but I found the main character, her behavior when she's transported back in time, which is the whole bit about Kindred, like she's like time traveling to enslaved Americans. Her behavior was in my mind so dangerous, right? Because there's a 20th century, a 21st century woman, and she's being transported back to the 1700s or whatever, and she is not behaving in a way that would make her safe in that time.
Right.
Which to be fair, how would you know, right? Like we say, oh, I would be able to switch how I behave to be appropriate for the time.
Mm-hmm.
But could we really pull that off? Like if I bounce back to 1860,
I think I can be cowering on command.
Like I might accidentally tell a white guy to suck a dick, which wouldn't be smart, but I might actually do that. But watching it on television,
I wonder if you would. God,
it's a weird thing, right? So it was hard for me to watch. So my point is, these first 4 chapters were so incredibly beautiful in ways I was not expecting. I couldn't have been prepared for. I have read so much fantasy over my lifetime that a lot of things I just take for granted because they're always the same. They don't ever change. And you start to believe that is like a hard and fast rule for the genre, right? Mm-hmm. You plop into a story, whether it's important to you or not, you think everybody is white.
Mm-hmm.
The locations that are described are very, very clearly coded to be European, whether they explicitly say it or not. Just the temperature, the way it looks, how people are dressed. And then you start getting into the descriptions of the individual characters, and there's lots of flowing blonde hair and beautiful pale blue eyes, and you're just like, whatever, you're used to it. I could not get over these opening chapters with all these descriptions of things that were very, very explicitly African.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I wasn't ready. And I found I had to go back and reread it because I was getting so, I don't want distracted isn't the right word, but I was so taken with just the descriptions of where we were and what people look like that I realized I was kind of missing the actual story. And I had to go back. But it was, I've never read anything like it. And I'm not saying there's nothing like it that exists. I'm just saying I haven't read anything like this yet.
Totally get that.
So yeah, it was, I could not get over how, as I was reading, being like, oh, I can see that. Oh, I know what she's talking about. Oh, she's describing the hair and the skin and just, I was blown away. I was blown away.
Yeah, this is, as obviously a white woman, I'm not going to have the same reaction because it's not about my representation, but I had a similar experience of realizing how much I just accept and expect for things to be coded European, oftentimes explicitly like Celtic, the color schemes of things to be, there's just a whole energy to everything that is like, well, we're going to have stone and castles and forests of, you know, deciduous and coniferous trees that are, and animals stalking in the snow and blah, blah, blah. And here it is just a completely different setting. And she's talking about the mango tree growing outside her window, you know.
Plantains. Like, what?
And she gets like bathed when she goes to the palace, and they comb her hair and then twist it with shea butter. And I was just like, it's just a really, I have grown to appreciate this a lot more ever since starting Spoil Me specifically, because what I have covered for Unspoiled has been very huge popular works that have a big audience, because I'm trying to attract listeners. So I go for things that are pretty famous already, and that tends to fall into tropes of this type. And doing Spoil Me has allowed people to come up and be like, hey, read this book that probably isn't popular enough for you to justify having a whole show about it. And I have come to realize I really have a problem with expecting tropes. And when people don't do them, they don't even have to do anything that exciting. But if they just don't do the trope, I'm like, ooh, how exciting. This is so new. And it's like, maybe it's not even, but it's enough to get me interested, you know? So this was just a really different universe. And there were a lot of things that, as we go forward, I stopped and like had to look up what she was describing, because I genuinely didn't know what to picture in my head for certain like types of fabric and things like that, you know? So let's begin with chapter 1, which we really jump right into a reveal of a kind of disturbing situation going on with Tarisai's mother. So we start off, the first line is, I shouldn't have been surprised that fairies exist. And she is talking about how she was like seeing them out the window, and these people are like, oh, those are only tutsu sprites. They don't deny that they exist. It's an accepted thing. And they say they can be kind and they can guide elephants to watering holes. And another tutor says, or lion packs if they're feeling less kind. And I was like, yikes.
I love that, like, even though we're talking about this new, like, this new area, this new setting, you know, for this sort of fantasy story that's different than what we're used to. I love that the energy of the, like, fairies, you just cannot trust them. You never know what they're going to be up to, is consistent.
Do not play with them.
I love that.
And then it says, I was 7 when the man with cobalt fire wings found me. That night, I had decided to search Swana, the second largest realm in the Arit Empire, for my mother. I had crept past my snoring maids and tutors, stuffed a sack with mangoes, and scaled our mud brick wall. And she gets gripped up by this strange-looking creature quite quickly. He is called an Alagbato, and he knows her name. And when she's like,
she is like, how? He said, because I named you. And I said, hold up. Hold up.
Yeah.
It really dives in very quickly into this, the situation. We find out that, I mean, I'm so already enthralled. Her mother, first of all, the lady. And that is how she's referred to. I don't know if we're ever going to get a name. I have so many theories already about what's going on with the lady. But we get treated to this scene where the lady basically slash tricks slash blackmails, gets the upper hand, whatever you want to call it, of a genie, a djinn. And is like, what you're about to do is get me pregnant with basically a little version of me that will be a like physical embodiment of a wish.
Yeah.
Which is just wild. But also, like, I don't want to derail the whole Crowdcast, too much with my own personal bullshit. But as someone, sorry, that's just my little bookmark. As someone who has literally been told by their mother that they are the born wish of themselves, it is a weird fucking thing, but super, super familiar. Like being told that you exist because I needed you to exist for a very specific thing. It is. When I read that, I was like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah, I feel like this is going to happen a few times in this book. You're going to have moments, so just get ready for that.
Appreciate the heads up there.
But yeah, she like has this poison that she has like reached a wellspring that if she pours it in, it's going to cause the land to die for like apparently like hundreds of miles potentially around. So she blackmails him into it. He makes her a house that is invisible where she and her friends will always be safe, and then essentially rapes him so that she can get pregnant.
Yep. It is this lady, like, so like instinctually I want to root because I will always root for everybody black. But then I'm also like, I don't know.
Yeah, But
I mean, like, a couple like later on when we get to this, I think it's in the 4th chapter where is it Tarasai? Is in the council with the elders in the Council of 11, whatever. She's recounting the story from the night before, and the story is of the mango tree.
Yeah, how about that fucking story, man? I literally started crying the first time I read that.
Listen, I was on the train. I read like 2 chapters going into work, and then 2 chapters coming home this evening. And I was on the train when I got to that story. I had to put the book down. I had to put the fucking book down. It's chapter fucking 4. I had to put the book down. Fucking A. Oh.
Yeah.
It like, but anyway. So I have like all kinds of theories about what that tree is and who the lady is. And
let's go ahead and just dive into that. Let's do that now because this is about the lady, this reveal. It's a good time to talk about her. She is out here doing something pretty intense. And the thing that she wanted initially, that the Olugbado was like, I can't do that, was to kill the emperor straight up. And he was like, no, I don't do
against the rules.
Life and death stuff. And then she's just like, I want a child that will only think what I want it to think and say and feel what I want it to say and feel. And he's like, yeah, see, remember how I said I don't do like life and death? I also can't make a person that's a puppet for you.
Yeah, yeah. And then she manages to zero in on this crazy loophole. Like on the spot. Well, maybe she thought like about it long and hard, but to me it felt like very much like, oh, I want this, you said no. I want that, you said no. Oh, how about this then? And he was like, God damn it. You got me. All right, that I can do. And I really appreciated it later when she's in the Council of the 11 and they're like, that's genius. I was like, it was genius. Yeah.
And they don't even know the extent of everything. All they know is that she hasn't told her daughter the situation. But there's a whole lot more that they might be impressed? Question mark?
Yeah. There's at one point, I think it's when the lady comes right before they're getting ready to start the journey and she's going to leave the Invisible Manor. And the lady says something like, you tried to cage me or something, you know, basically like you tried to cage me and make me sing, but basically like it failed, right? Like I escaped it somehow. I cannot wait to find out that the lady was like originally maybe one of the 11, and then like she thought that like this person who's going to be emperor isn't good enough for whatever reason, or maybe she thought that she was better suited to be in charge and was exiled, and now she's got this crazy plan to like, you know, get rid of the emperor so that someone else can be in charge. But I don't know if it's malicious or not. Like I can't tell if the lady is malevolent because she seems like a little dicey. But I'm prepared.
Do the ends justify the means?
Right? Like
question that RoShawn is asking.
I'm prepared to find out down the road that her motivations for this scheme are well founded, you know, and that she ends up being sort of more heroic than like, you know, a disaster. But I don't know if that's going to actually pan out. But I'm here for it if that's what it ends up being, especially after having met the emperor.
Yeah, the emperor who's like, go ahead and try and poison this child.
I wasn't a big fan. Yeah.
What?
But so we got this little girl who is isolated in this really extreme way.
Yeah.
There's a moment where it says that she stands at the window and waves at the kids outside, but nobody ever waves back because she doesn't understand that they can't see her. Right?
Yeah.
So she just feels like she's being ignored, not realizing that they like literally physically cannot see her. And
the servants don't touch her because she can read memories when she touches people and objects. And so she is like absolutely starved for human contact in a way that is like, it's simultaneously about a practical thing, trying to keep her from, you know, reading minds essentially, but also it winds up being a really good way for the lady to control her by exploiting this deep need that she has that is completely unsatisfied.
Yep.
It's really rough to read, honestly.
And the fact that all of her caretakers are taking care of her, not out of a desire to care for her, but out of deference to the lady. Like everything about what they do, all her tutors, her caretakers, her nanny, everything is about reporting back about the progress, right? So it's not about her. She's not centered at all. She is also commonly referred to as like a demon-like, and it and a creature, as if they all have an understanding of what exactly she is that she doesn't understand yet, you know?
Yeah. When she like talks about the Alubato after this encounter with Melu, they all have this like freaked out look, and they clearly kind of know exactly what she's talking about already, but they don't. They never had real proof, I think, and her talking about this has just taken it to another level now, because now they're all like, oh, this is what we thought the whole time.
Right. It's like a couple of different variables that all end up with just isolating her between the lack of touch and contact and just information about who she is and why she is, the absence of the lady, her mother, the weirdness in which everyone that surrounds her interacts with her. You know, it's just like this off-putting sort of like, you're weird and wrong, but we're not going to tell you why you're weird and wrong. So by the time you get through these first three or four chapters, I personally felt like it was almost suffocating.
Yeah.
Like I was just like, what the fuck? You know?
Yeah, she does a really good job of just emphasizing how deeply lonely this little girl is. And we have this sequence where she realizes that nothing can hurt her in the house.
Oh my God.
So she's like
she
throwing
goes
herself
bonkers
off of furniture and breaking bones and burning herself. And she doesn't die, but she's still like,
she's still getting hurt.
Yeah. So they're bandaging her up and everything. And like, they're I don't know if I want to say their lives depend on keeping her safe exactly, but you certainly get the impression that they're afraid of the lady to a
Absolutely.
point. And
I
the
think
fact
it's
that
fair
she
to
keeps
say,
sort of like putting herself in, it's going to reflect badly on them.
yeah, their lives might not depend on it, but their livelihood does.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, and because it's just a job to them, that's the most important thing to them, is keeping this job. Not any real care for this little girl, who a lot of them don't seem to even perceive as being a little girl. They don't treat her like she's human, like she needs anything, that she deserves anything. They just treat her like this object that they are tasked with overseeing. You know?
Yeah. My mother was the devil and I her puppet demon is the last sentence of chapter 1.
Shit, y'all.
So then we go to chapter 2 and everything with Bikina House, her harming herself. And we get a little bit of history here about Eretzar and the Eret Empire.
This is
wonderful. There's a lot of info. We later on find out that there's one place named Songland, which is not part of the Empire.
That so much. Also, a really quick note. I want to just mention because what she's doing, at least in these first chapters, I don't know if it changes later on, is she's not identifying any of these locales with any like real air quotes names of places, right? Like these are all invented places. However, you get from the description of the people, you get an idea of where in the world these people might be from, right?
Right.
Especially when we get to chapter 4, when she gets to like the capital city and all that. And we start seeing that there's people from all over the realm and they all look different. So I love that, like the people from Songland, especially when you meet Wu In,
yeah.
Later, you're like, oh, okay, I see what she's doing there. But just the description of the people, you realize, oh, she's bringing people from all around the world into the story. Like, she's not telling you specifically, oh, these people from Asia, but you get it, right?
Yeah,
there's a throwaway line in the last chapter when she's in the capital city of a very upset young man. Who has not made it through the trials, and he is having a fit. And that boy is white. He's white.
That boy is white. That is Draco Malfoy asking, "Do you know who my father is?" As he is hauled out by his ear. Indeed.
When I tell you I cackled, I really did.
Yep. There are lots of like little moments where I'm just like, oh yeah, she enjoyed doing that. I feel like,
and she called them like they're like not skins or something. Like the area they're from, it's not like Europe or whatever, but it's like it's not. It's almost like north, but it's not quite. I forget what she calls it.
I can't remember, but
something with an N. But yeah, I really enjoyed that moment as well. I was like, all right, girl, I see you. I see what you're doing.
Let's see. Long ago, Eretzar had not existed. In its place, a jumble of isolated islands had floated on a vast sea. The 12 weak rivaling lands were ravaged by Abiku, demons from the underworld. Then a warlord named Inoba the Perfect Kunleo had unleashed a power from the earth, uniting the lands into one massive continent. He had crowned himself emperor, enlisting 12 of the continent's rulers as his vassals. Then he battled the Abiku with his newly christened army of 12 realms. The mortal and immortal armies had been so evenly matched that Inoba's war dragged on for decades, before at last the exhausted forces struck a truce.
This was wild.
Yeah.
So we find out that to appease, I don't know, the gods, the universe, whatever, there are these children that need to be sacrificed. And I love, if I'm not mistaken, the way she writes it is that no one is really sure why all the children have to come from this one place, Songland, right?
It used to be that they were born at random, but for like a couple hundred
several
years
hundred years now.
Yeah.
They've all mysteriously come from this one place. And not only do they come from this one place, but there are varying stories to explain it. And this is fucking, it checks out because this is what we do, right? Some stories are like, oh, they're cursed and this is their punishment. And other stories are like, oh no, they're almost saints. This is their gift.
And she describes it as like stories to help the others sleep at night.
Yep,
you know, the fact that we're not getting picked, we have to like make it so that that's okay.
Yep. Like the burden of like they're so relieved that they are not carrying this burden anymore, right? Because we were supposed to believe at some point that maybe it was more randomly distributed, but now all the children come from this one place. So to assuage the guilt that everyone else is feeling from not having to make these sacrifices, we come up with these like mythologies around it. And if that ain't the fucking what we do, y'all, I don't know what to tell you.
And the kids who have to be sacrificed are born with a map on their bodies, like a tattoo.
So there's no escaping it.
Yeah.
And you know it the minute you have one of those babies, that's what's going to happen. That's the end result.
And when she asks because he made it back, apparently, well, isn't that tattoo going to go away? He says it'll go away when the nightmares do. So that sucks.
Yeah. There's a bit where she talks about like how rare it is to actually survive this sort of journey to the underworld that these sacrificed children have to do. And she says it's so rare to survive it, but when they come out, they are almost to a man scarred, if not physically, like mentally, from whatever it is they went through. And then I think there's like another throwaway line in maybe the 4th chapter where she's talking to Wynn because I think somebody refers to him as a prince. Maybe can talk about Kathleen.
Yeah, Kathleen does, I think.
And he's like, and Teresa is like, not Teresa, Tarisai is like, I didn't learn about princes. And he says, oh, well, I wouldn't have been like noted. They wouldn't have mentioned me in the official records because when I was born, everyone would have known what my deal was going to be.
Yeah.
So it's like he got erased from his own family history and lineage because the minute he was born, everybody was like, oh, he's got all these tattoos on him. It's almost like he doesn't count.
Yep.
Which is, I don't even know what to do with that. But yikes.
Yeah. I want to talk about briefly the songs and chants. This is something that I find really interesting because like I'm listening to the audiobook as well. So I'm hearing the interpretations of some of the sounds that they're making that are written with just all consonants. And I would, I probably reading it would just not really get it, but listening to the audiobook, let's see, I'm going to read this first one. Oluwanan Swana bring his drum. Unse, unse is the way that she does that NSE sound. Derma and Neama bring his plow. Gumpopo, gumpopo. Mwe and Sparty see our older brother dance. Black and gold. Isn't he perfect? And she sort of sings it in the audiobook. She's like, but there's a lot of singing and chanting in the book with these sorts of like punctuated sound effect, kind of like onomatopoeia, right. I guess is the word I'm wanting. And I just really appreciated getting to actually hear her do them because I really would not have known what to do. You know what I mean? But it's really cool to hear because it does, I don't know, it like punctuates everything in such a way.
I think I might check out the audiobook. I can't just do audiobooks and then podcasts because I have difficulty retaining. That way I do better reading. But to your point, I think I would like to hear this read because there's such a rhythm to it.
Yeah.
Especially when she's telling the mango tree story. And I would love to hear that. Because even reading it, like some of the stuff I was able to be like, I could fill in the gaps from like movies I've seen and videos I've seen over the years. But like, okay, I think this is supposed to sound like this, or it's supposed to sound like that. But I think I would really, really appreciate hearing the audiobook and hearing this performed. I think it would be worth it. So
the
I might treat
narrator,
myself
I think,
to
is pretty good. She does a really good, like, young girl voice, I feel, and it's believable. But there are times where I feel like she's very plaintive. No matter what the like context is of what she's reading, and I'll start to be like, you really need to tone it down. She's not like desperate or upset in this moment, and you're making her sound like
she's not begging everybody for everything all the time.
a little bit, just a drop.
I wonder if that's a sort of a difficulty with trying to find a line between what a young girl questioning sounds like versus, you know, I'm just begging for somebody to do a thing, or answer a question, tell me a thing.
Oh, here is the Nantes. Is this the name of the country?
The place where the boy is from? Okay.
Yeah. Derma, Nantes, Jibanti, Quetzala, the night festivals of Niamba, the silk farms of Montreal, the snowy peaks of Birislav, and the booby-trapped rainforests of Quetzala. So we've got these places, and then she hears this song outside the window. 11 danced around the throne, 11 moons in glory shone, they shone around the sun. But traitors rise and empires fall, and sun will rule them all. When all is said, all is said, all is done, done. And she sings this in front of one of her caretakers, and they are like, hey, where did you hear that? You really shouldn't sing that ever, please. And then they board up the fucking window.
Yeah. They board up all the windows, lock all the windows. That's a recurring thing too, where she is like trying to engage with and see the outside world, and people are just like, no, you can't, without what I thought was any reasonable explanations for why, you know, just like a series of no's and cutting her off as she's like grasping for some sort of like, what is going on out there? Yeah. People go to the market. Like, what's that about? You know?
Yeah. When she's traveling later, she's like, I was never in a vehicle with wheels before.
Ever. I love to like, all right. So there's two things in these first chapters, which I was so angry about that I even thought about it, but it can't be helped. There's a mention of hallows, which in this are like birth gifts. But of course, I'm thinking like the Deathly Hallows, because what can you do, right? And then this way of travel, which they call what did you say?
Lodestone,
which is very similar to like traveling by port key. And I was just like, oh.
It seems like it's a little bit more physical and less like it's magical, but it's uncomfortable in a way that is beyond a port key, which is like,
at one point
you get a little seasick, but
at one point she it's like apparating, because at one point in this she like travels and her arm disappears. And it was like, what did she call it? Like
splinched.
Splinched. And I was like, oh, I don't want to give that woman credit for anything. God damn it.
Oh my God. I know. I've been thinking lately about like recording something short just about the, you know, what's going on with her to just place at the end of the Harry Potter feed.
Someone reached out to Steven today specifically about our Harry Potter coverage. He was like, hey,
really?
A guy, a book they put out, the guy to put the book out reached out to Steven and was like, hey, I work with a woman. She's really interested. What's the Harry Potter podcast your wife does? And I was like, yeah, it's on the website. You can like go find it, whatever. And then and right after I was like, do I want to even like tell people that we did that? Even though it was a huge thing for us. But she has so ruined it that I don't even fucking want people to know that was a thing. And it was a huge part of my life.
This is the struggle that I'm having right now with figuring out how to advertise the podcast in general, because that is the show that I would emphasize if I were going to be focused on solely getting more listeners and the business aspect of what I'm trying to do. And my conscience just doesn't like the idea, even if it's she's not getting any money from us, it's still being associated.
Still profiting off of her brand, right? Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. And there has been some really great writing. Those of you who don't follow Chuck Tingler on Facebook, he has been posting a lot about the concept of separating the art from the artist. And his hypothesis is basically, you can't do that. You can tell yourself you can do that, but you're still making a choice, and it's not actually separating it. It's just you deciding you're fine with a thing. Yes. And honestly, that's where I sit with it, is I don't think you can separate art from an artist, not unless they're long dead. That's a different situation.
That's been my, like, we've talked about this. My general feeling is, like, if the person is dead and they've been dead like 20 years.
Yeah.
But if they're still alive, they're still fucking tweeting their bullshit.
They're still alive. They're still tweeting. They're still profiting. And they are tweeting about how they take the fact that they are profiting as people agreeing with them.
Yep.
They are interpreting your dollars in the exact way that you are trying to act like it won't be interpreted.
Yep.
And they are saying that with words. It's just really time to let it go, everybody. It really is. And I hate to say it because y'all know what we put into it, but like,
we put into it twice. We went to the series
twice. And we went to fucking Wizarding
to the
World.
Panels. Did panels on that shit. Went to Wizarding World. Went to LeakyCon twice. For her to turn around to be trashed for no reason, because she's got $1 billion. You got $1 billion. You can afford to be nice and loving to everybody. It costs you nothing. And this is what she chose. Fuck her forever.
So yeah, I've been because I haven't posted anything about her on that feed, even though it's been on my mind. And I think a lot of that was me not really knowing how to articulate the way I was feeling about things. And then the post that Chuck did, I was like, oh, there it is. Thank you. Like, he just really was able to articulate it. And I am like, I might do something. Maybe you and I could record something short. It's like 15 minutes and just be like, hey guys, this exists. We're not deleting it, but here's how we're feeling. But anyway, let's get back to the thing that's good.
Chloe mentioned it really quickly in the chat too, and I think it's important to mention that the woman we're talking about, whose name doesn't deserve to be said, also is funneling her money now into a bunch of bullshit. Like, she is supporting with her money these organizations and these charities that are 100% only engaged in harm and nonsense.
Yep.
So fucking stop giving her your money. Stop giving her our money.
Stop it. Give me your money, everybody.
Yes, give us your money.
Okay, so then oh my God, this thing, her 11th birthday, the lady shows up. And she calls her maid of me.
I love, like, when I tell you that resonates with me on a level where I am both in love with it and also disgusted by it at the same time. I wish I could really put into words, because there's something about that expression, that phrase, that is both tender and loving and also tells you almost everything you need to know. Because you're not even you. You're just made of me to do the thing that I want you to do. You guys.
Yeah.
Fucking only 4 chapters I have read. And I am already snatched.
Hello, made of me, she said, and hummed that chilling lullaby. Me, mine, she's me, and she is mine. And she sings this in the audiobook, and I was just like, ugh.
Oh my God.
It gets to me.
I got a little bit, just you doing it just now. I was like, fuck.
So there are two people here, and she says, tell my daughter that you are her new permanent guardians. And Tarisai is like, word? Because everybody that has taught her whole life has vanished at some point and been replaced.
She's so excited to have people that she thinks will be here, that she can count on, that won't just disappear in the night.
Guess what
Too
they
close
do?
to home. Too close
They
to
disappear
home.
in the night?
They drop her off and then disappear, right? But they're like, oh, don't worry, we're around. Even when you can't see us, we'll be around. Which
is like meant to be reassuring, but it's also vaguely sinister.
Not, right? Like, if you're going to be around, I'd like to see you. If
I would like
can't
for you
see
to be around then.
How around are you? Just in the shadows,
don't worry.
lurking.
You might not be able to see us, but we're always watching.
That is not comforting.
I don't like it. Thanks. So let's see. The older stranger, a feline woman about the lady's age, was dressed entirely in green. Tawny brown skin contrasted with hard green eyes. Curly hair burst from beneath her cloak's hood, which she wore even in the heat. And Isokan, I realized. Isokan people had mixed blood, parents from different Eret realms. To hasten empire unity, the Kunleo Imperial Treasury rewarded families for every Isokan child born.
You guys... Yo, like, we're doing this in our fantasy stuff. Listen, all right. So, okay, couple of things.
Please.
I'm not saying that there's any like official government body anywhere that was like, actively encouraging, mixed race babies anywhere.
Miscegenation.
Right. That's a. But
sorry.
So I don't know if you guys know, but like, I don't know if this is the kind of thing you have to be in a mixed race relationship to know about or not. But so me and my husband have been together a long ass time. If you caught us at the beginning of the chat, almost 25 years. And a thing that used to happen to us all the time, especially when we were younger and people still thought we were going to have kids, strangers would come up to us and be like, oh, you're going to have the most beautiful babies. Your babies are going to change the future. You're going to, like, they would say that to us, like, dead to my face. I'd be outside, like, having a coffee and a smoke with my husband, and someone who we did not know would be like, oh, are you married? Oh, you're going to have beautiful children. Your children are going to be like the future of the country. If only we're all mixed together, then we'll all be one race, and there won't be any of these problems. Yes. All the time. So when she talks about like getting like a little extra stipend for having these babies, I was like, oh, well, there you go.
That shit is there's so many things going on with this, guys. Like, I don't know how many folks are aware of like the white women out there who are just like, well, let me just get a black baby daddy because I want to have mixed kids because they're the prettiest. And it's just like there's so many like creep-tastic fucking layers to it all.
This idea that like you can have a mixed race child, whether it's, white, black, or any other like numerous, whatever,
mix
couple
and match
that you
combos. Wow, that laugh was really something.
Mix and match combos. I wasn't ready. But
it's like a Subway. The restaurant, not the
transportation. But really though, like this idea that you can have mixed race children, and then especially if you're white, and then you retreat back into whiteness with this mixed race child, and
who you can hold up as proof that you're not racist at any point.
Simultaneously holding up as proof is like your get out of jail free pass, right? Oh, I can't be racist because I have this mixed race child. but also completely isolating that child, completely raising them within white supremacy without giving them the language they need to know themselves, where they come from, to gaslight them their entire lives. And then they ended up being 20-something making TikToks about you, which is a real fucking thing.
Yeah.
It is this sort of disconnect that we have. Well, we don't have. Some people have. White people have, about like how
just getting less specific and then more specific. Some people, white people.
But like this disconnect between like how race really impacts you, because white people don't have a frame of reference for that. White people do not understand how race impacts how you live because you are white, and so it doesn't impact you. So when she got to that bit, I was like, oh shit, we're doing that too. These are the first 4 chapters, ma'am. I need you to calm down.
She's like, I'm going nuts. She just went for it all.
She really did. And like, obviously, to be unspoiled, I can't do like any research into this author, so I don't know anything about her.
I will tell you that she was raised by Nigerian immigrant parents in California.
Is this her first, like,
yes,
foray into being published, her first big thing?
And other than this, she's wrote some short stories, but she hasn't written any other books.
Wow.
And it took her a really long time to write the sequel.
Oh, really?
And it was like kind of tough for her to do. But otherwise, yeah, it seems like she had this book in her head for a long time, and she got it written over the course of like, I think she says like 8 years, something like that. Let me look it up. But she just, the idea for it had been in her mind for a long time, and then they wanted her to write a sequel, which she had intended anyway. But the sort of inspiration that had hit for the first one didn't hit for the second one. She had to really work for the story. And I think the second one is a great book. I don't feel like it feels like it was such an effort while you read it, but I just thought it was interesting reading her perspective on writing it. And she also had been going through like a really major depressive episode. She talks about like her mental health a lot, and that it just all kind of came together to make things a lot harder on the second go around.
And it's just 2 books, right?
It came out in 2020, Raybearer.
Oh, it's fairly
recent. Real recent.
Oh, okay. And it's just the 2 books?
Yes. I'm sorry. You talking about like them coming up to you and talking about how you're going to have beautiful children.
It was so bad. It was so bad. I
am so white looking, and I would get that with my actually white boyfriend, Mike, because as I have talked about, I am white passing in general, unless I'm surrounded by all white people, in
then
which
you
case
stand out.
Everybody is like, she's definitely something else.
Yeah.
And there was a guy that I worked with, and in the theater, we were in like the backstage, and very like nice dude in general, but he did one of those things where he's like, so what are you?
Oh.
And I was like, oh, okay. And I just like told him what my parents were. And then he said, yeah, I think that makes the prettiest people.
Oh,
and it was just such a weird moment, because like I didn't have the language to understand why I felt insulted, even though he was like thinking he was giving me a compliment. And so I just sat there in that moment of just like, he just talked about me like I was a vase or something, and I didn't get it.
The difference is like, you are the object of that, right? Like me and Steven, we are like the object of the compliment or whatever. It doesn't exist, right? It's the theoretical baby.
Right.
But you are the child of the mixed race coupling. So you are the object. So people are talking to you as if you're not a real thing. Oh, you're just a Look at you. You know?
Oh, so yeah, you're one of those things.
It's actually, I feel like low-key worse. Because at least when people were saying that shit to me, it was about a thing that didn't exist. People were saying it to you about you. And you
but
exist.
Like, about me, but like to me as if it wasn't about me. As if they were talking about, it was just a weird experience of
people just need to stop doing this.
They don't know how to fucking remember Owen's on. This is Natasha. God. Isn't she exotic looking? Guys, this was like literally a year and a half ago. I didn't even know what to say. I just like looked at Owen and he just looked at the ground. Just one of those like,
oh my God. Why people just be out here saying anything?
I just like I'm looking at myself right now on the camera and I just can't come up with the word exotic to describe what I'm seeing on the camera. I can't do it.
But the backdrop of Owen's family around you, and then it makes perfect sense.
It does, I guess. Just like I'm over here in my like Amazon sweatshirt with my fucking freckles.
Like, my favorite thing about white people is the absolute lack of shame. White people have no shame. They just be out in these streets saying whatever the fuck they want because they can, because they're white people. I love that for them. I really do.
It's giving Michael Scott saying, "So was your dad a GI or?"
Like, imagine what it must be like to go through life like that. Like, I'm gonna just say whatever the fuck I feel like saying. Who's gonna check me? You are mighty exotic looking, ma'am. On a Tuesday at 10 a.m. for no reason.
Oh, God. All right. So, we have to get back in this. Kathleen. She has a vibe about her. She calls her, she says, "I hope this creature won't be trouble. Does it have a name?"
Creature, brat, demon. Mm-hmm. Kathleen is not here for any of this. And I don't know if you have it handy. Probably not. I meant to I didn't have enough bookmarks. But when there's a description of both Kathleen and Wu-En when they're first introduced, mm-hmm. I was trying to figure out where Kathleen was from. Like, what was she? Right? Like, I'm white. What are you?
What are you?
And
you have to come back to your mic. You keep pulling away.
It feels like she is. Where do you think Kathleen is from?
North Carolina.
Why? Why would you?
I don't know why I pulled that out.
Ma'am.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know. Like, because she is apparently mixed, she could be from anywhere.
Yeah.
Right?
And she has like this sort of like, it's a, I don't want to just say attitude by itself, doesn't seem fair, but there's a definitely sort of a air of just sort of like tiredness of being like people trying to figure out who she is and where she's from, and she's kind of over it. Like, it's boring at this point. It's happened a lot. And what is the word? Isoken,
yeah.
Right. And so it's as if this was a thing that that should have offered her, I don't know if privilege is the right word, but should have offered her safety or something, right?
Yeah, I think privilege is probably the word. And
yet it didn't quite work out.
Yeah.
And so now she's sort of like low-key resentful. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, people always treat us this way, always expect whatever
XYZ,
from us just because we're this thing. So she has a little bit of a chip on her shoulder. I think it's fair. She doesn't seem very nice.
There's like a couple of moments when she's talking, because like the lady is being really careful about what she says in front of Tarisai. Mm-hmm. And at one point she says something about how if we take too long, there may not be room left on his council. And Kathleen says we can make room.
Yeah, she does. And the lady is like, calm down.
Yeah, she's like, I really don't
settle down.
Have to do that.
Right? Kathleen is like on go, like ready. Mm-hmm. She's like that ride or die friend. She's like that gif where she's like, who do you want me to kill or whatever it is?
Do
like,
you want me to kill him? Holding it up outside the window and pointing at it. Yes. Yep.
Which generally I'm a fan of that energy. But because there's a young child involved, I was not seeing it for Kathleen. I'm hoping that will like circle around and I'll end up being like, oh no, she's just like hardcore and like goes to battle for what's important to her. And at this point that I've met her, the lady is much more important to her than this child is, and that's where her energy is. I'm hoping to like come to a good place with that. But
we'll have to see.
The very, very beginning, I feel like this woman should not be around a child. What? She shouldn't be in charge at all.
And yeah, the lady doesn't say her name is Tarisai. The lady says the Eru calls her something else, which I don't think I noticed the first reading. And the fact that she only ever calls her maid of me had sort of, I was like, oh, that's her nickname. And then I'm like, no, that's literally what she calls her.
Yeah.
That is not okay. I don't like it. I don't like it.
And when he tells her, was it Melu? When he says, I gave you your name, right? Mm-hmm. He's like, yeah, I gave you your name. And that's the only reason you have it is because it came from me. Because if you will notice, let the record show, your mama don't never call you that.
Yeah.
Because in her mom, like, it seems like right now, hopefully this changes because this is so toxic. But right now, this little girl only exists in her mom's imagination as the sort of manifestation of what she wants to happen. This little girl does not exist as her own individual person that deserves like fulfillment, deserves care, has a choice. Like none of that exists. This little girl is like a fucking bullet.
Yeah.
Locked into like a gun chamber, right? Gun type chambers. I don't really know a lot about guns, y'all. It's been a long time since I had one in my hand. Barrel chamber.
You chamber a bullet though.
Chamber, right?
So like, yeah, I think that's.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I feel like I said it's been a long since I had a gun in my hand, and it has, y'all. It's been a long. I
haven't had a gun in my hand.
It feels so good. I know it's liberals and leftists. We're not supposed to say that, but I am like team gun ownership now.
That's like being like, as a feminist, I'm not allowed to say that my boobs are fun. Like, of course, you can like a feel of a gun in your hand.
For a long time, I was like, guns are bad. And then, like, the world went to shit, and I was like, no, everybody get a gun real quick. Go get one.
Low key, yeah.
Yeah. My mental health are better. I'd have one right now, but it's probably not, not best.
No fucking kidding.
But yeah, the fact that, and also I just want to mention, and we talked about it a little bit, but I just think it bears repeating. This little girl's longing for her mother is so poignant. Like it just, and again, it could be my own shit, but I really felt like it jumped right off the page. You know how desperate she is for her mom's like embrace, for her mom's comfort, for her mom's validation, her mom's attention, all of that.
And she like greets Kathleen in her native tongue. She calls it Muish, so that must be where she's from. The country whose name I've already lost. I'm trying to see Muish, but I'm looking at like the names of the countries, and I don't see one that feels like it matches that name. I don't know.
I'm gonna look at this little map real quick. Oh, Mew, MEWE. And the map,
that's it. Okay.
Yeah, it's right next to Nantes. It's like north and to the west.
Okay.
And then there's Berislav. So those are like the most northern countries.
And then here we get only our citizens take pride in their cultures being erased. And let's see, his voice reminded me of a spider's web, soft and gossamer. He scanned me with eyes like half moons, lifting a tan, angular jaw. A blue cape draped over his arm. Besides that, he wore nothing but trousers, and every inch of his body, face, arms, chest, and feet, was covered in what appeared to be geometric purple tattoos. I probably imagined it, but for a moment they seemed to glow. A pleasure, lady's daughter. My name is Wu-In. My homeland, thank the storyteller, lies outside this unnaturally unified empire.
Unnaturally unified. We're going to come back to that. There's a lot that's been talked about in these first couple of chapters. This sort of like miracle in unification, right? This emperor that came out and was able to unify all these different continents and islands into one place. And there's this like lovely little map at the beginning of the book, and you see all the different areas. And then the idea that the unification that happened, it's a story that we all celebrate, maybe wasn't so great. Maybe there was a cost, right? We don't know exactly, but then we find out a little bit about Songland and how these sacrifices of children are happening to, and you start thinking, oh,
something feels off,
right? Like, what was the cost of it? Like, what did we turn in to get this? And then when we get to, because the whole thing is at the beginning of the book is that this young lady is coming of age. She's going to be taken to the capital city to go through the series of trials because this is so wild. Each emperor has a council of 11 that are determined at child age.
Right.
And that they are then bonded for life. And we find out that this council is also the only people who have the power to actually bring harm to the emperor or to kill him, you know, or whatever.
Yeah. It's like there's like a magical circle drawn around him, and the only ones inside it are them.
Yeah. But also because then you're thinking, well, like, why have anybody in the circle then? Like, why? But clearly there is something that says you have to have this, though. This has to be generation to generation to generation. Because if I'm an emperor and I'm only vulnerable to the people in my council, maybe I don't want to have a council. Then I won't be vulnerable, right? But this keeps happening, so it's got to be part of the deal. So she's
and also each of the 11 are from one of the other lands,
right?
So they're representatives of, like, it's like a senate sort of thing.
Exactly. I love that too. Like, each person is representing one of these little like islands that are now part of this giant empire, and it doesn't work unless you have one from each, right? Like, at some point the rules were laid out. You have to have a representative from each area, and each child emperor will get this council sort of designated as at a very, very young age. And then they will be sort of like locked in together through the rest of their lives. Like, this is it. And that is so bizarre to me to imagine. Right.
Yeah. Very, very weird.
It is such a wild idea. So that's what's happening and why she's being moved to the capital city. And we know from the last time they were at the Invisible Manor, when the lady and Kathleen and Wu-In show up, they are sending her in as a bomb. You know, they're trying to sneak her in under the radar because the lady wants her daughter to kill the prince, the emperor to be, kill him before he ascends. And this is her like big plan. And they figure it out because it's like a secret, but it's not a secret. When she shows
everybody just assumes immediately, like, oh, okay, so this is her big fucking play. I get it.
when she's there in the room and they all like call it out, I was like, wait, but the book just started. And they all like figure out what the plan is. And then there's a couple of people on the council, and I don't remember everybody's name, but the emperor is there, and then his consort or whatever, the mother of his child, who is the prince, tries to poison her with an apple, like we're Snow White.
Yeah.
And then the other high priestess like jumps in and saves her from eating the apple, and was like, "We don't poison children here." But ma'am, y'all were just about to poison a child here.
And it should be noted that Tarisai knows that's what they're doing. Like, she is about to take a bite because he told her to do it.
Right.
But she is fully aware this is poison, and they're
terrible.
talking about poisoning her right in front of her.
But
and
like,
she
what else
wants
can I
to
do?
run, but there's nowhere to go. Like, what is she supposed to do?
Yep.
So it's a really awful scene of her just like capitulating in killing herself in there, and there's just like no other real option, and it's I hate it for her.
I wonder how much of the book is going to be that, right? Because like it's shocking to me how much the book gave us in the first 4 chapters, right? Like it really did. There's a lot of mystery still left, but it did lay out a bunch of shit really early on that I would have expected to take a little bit longer to get to. So what I start to wonder is, if we know what the lady has planned, which we do, which is that basically she is like a stealth bomber, you know,
right? We
know that. Then the story has to really become whether or not she gets a choice. Like, does it become a battle of will, like her mother's will and her wish versus what she wants to do? Is that where the story is going? Or does she not have any say whatsoever? And the wish that her mother has implanted in her is going to come to fruition. And that's going to be the story that I'm reading. I really don't know. I feel like it's more compelling if, as she grows, because I feel like it's very clear she's going to get on the council, right? She's going to be, like, she found the kid hiding in the open room. Like, he can't help but love her. He has no choice. So she's clearly going to, like, you know, become one of that. So I guess I'm wondering if it becomes a battle of wills between what her mother wants for her, which is to kill the prince. If it's about her saying, no, I don't want to do that. That's my mother's goal. It doesn't serve me. That's not what the world needs. Or is it about her growing up and understanding why her mother wanted this for her? And being like, oh yeah, this has to happen. So yeah, I'm really curious. I don't know which way it's gonna go. I feel like very, very early on, I feel like the story is going to be about this little girl growing up and trying to decide, is her desperation for her mother's approval and her mother's love enough to make her just be a puppet?
Yeah.
Or is it going to be about her not being a puppet and making her own choices? And I don't really know what that looks like because it's so early. But I feel like that's kind of got to be the thing, right?
I couldn't
can't
say.
Tell me. You're not going to tell me.
So she takes off on this journey with them, and the whole way that this goes, it's so weird because they don't explain to her what's happening here. She gets, like, from the lady, when you love him the most and when he anoints you as his own, I want you to kill him. And that is her order. And then she gets, like, dropped at this place, and she isn't given any explanation really about what is expected of her, about the process by which they do this. And the lady had specifically said, the less she knows, the purer she will seem.
And he likes them
girls like that.
Yep. I got really creeped out at that one line. I think that was just the way it was written. I don't think it was meant to be that way. But that's the way he likes them. I was like, oh, please don't be that. I don't think it's supposed to be that, but I was like,
I don't want to say anything in either direction.
Oh no, I wanted you to say absolutely. It wasn't that.
I'm just not going to tell you anything. And then when she's dropped off, she says, like, what's going on? What will these people do to me? Wu-Win looked uncomfortable, but squeezed my hand. You'll be fine, he muttered. We will always be near even when you can't see us, and you have been prepared. Prepared for what? And I'm like, prepared really isn't the word, sir. Like, she has the tools somewhere in her toolbox, but they are not organized at the top of the pile. No. And you really could have helped a little bit, but whatever. So she meets another girl here for the first time who is her own age. And she has a veil over her hair and neck.
Yeah. I love this inclusion. We are the same. We're all from this like United area or whatever. But the little girl, I'd say Kingdom, and then I wanted to take it back. But she's like, "Oh, we're of the blessed," but it's spelled like with an I at the end, and and we cover for modesty. And I was just like, look at that!
Yep,
just throwing that in there. Like nobody told you had to do that, but you did it anyway, and I love that.
And she is singing to herself, and Tarisai starts to get really sleepy and yawns, and the girl stops and is like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I always forget. I sing this when I'm afraid to calm myself down, but it will make you fall asleep." And let's see, my tutors had not brought me up in one of the Aurit religious sects, though I knew there were 4. Can all winged people do what you do? Magic with their voices? She snorted. No. And it's not magic. I just remind bodies of what they need most. It's my hallow.
I love that. I just remind bodies of what they need most.
Yeah. Really big interpretation available for that. That's a broad statement, So this is when we get the boy being ushered out, as he says, "Unhand me." And Tarisai asks this girl, what do they do? What are the tests like? And she says, well, it's nothing dangerous. The trouble only comes if they like us, because then we never get to see our parents again until we're grown up. What? I hollered. And it turns out that this bonding thing, it's just going to be her entire life
forever. Ever
they choose her.
Yep, forever. This is it.
Yep.
It is really daunting, like the idea that this is like, they're walking in at like 11 years old or whatever they're supposed to be, just literal children, and they are about to sign on to a lifelong commitment that is placing the well-being of someone else above your own, like your love of the prince, of the emperor, your loyalty to him is the top of everything.
Yeah.
And that also, once you do that, because I think the little girl Kira or something close to Kira,
it's Kira, yeah,
we will be together for the rest of our lives. Like, imagine if we both pass it, we'll be, friends and I don't want to say involved, but like connected in this higher purpose for the rest of our lives. I can't even imagine at 12 years old,
Yeah, and this really speaks to Tarisai in a way that it works very well for her mother's purposes, but I don't know was necessarily what her mother intended by keeping her so isolated.
She's desperate for this sort of connection, right? This is like the lottery.
And so she finally gets ushered in, and I really love the line, like all of their, when I entered they turned their heads in eerie unison. Which I don't know why, but that was just a very evocative, like, ooh, kind of moment, And she steps out, and immediately they know who she is.
Yeah.
She looks exactly like her mother.
We had been hearing, how much she resembled her mother, to the point where the traveling was constantly Kathleen like shoving her face down, and covering her with hoods and keeping her head out of the window because she didn't want people to see her and recognize her. Which to me, I was like, well, if she looks just like that, how was she rolling up into the Capitol? What did you think was going to happen? But this was part of the deal as well. Like, they didn't expect her, like, they expected her to be recognized the minute she showed up.
Yeah.
And I guess the lady...
Hand over mouth.
I guess the lady understood enough about this process because it sounds very much like she went through it herself. She understood that once you got this little girl in the room, it doesn't matter what she'd look like because policy and procedures and traditions or whatever would mandate they continue through the process once she's there, which is what kind of ends up happening. Like, some of them are like, oh, no, she should be disqualified immediately. Kick her out. And one of them, maybe Thaddeus or maybe it's the high priestess.
It's Thaddeus.
It's like, no. We've already started. She's washed her hands in the bowl. Like, we can't just kick her out. It might curse us. It's like fucking guest rights, Oh, you can't just kick her out now. Which, again, really, really smart for the lady.
Yeah.
Like, just get her in the room. Once she's in the room, shit starts going and they can't stop it.
So she comes in and Olugbade is like, so what you doing here? And when she's like, I don't know, my mom didn't tell me anything. He's like, how about I tell you what I think? I think your mom sent you here to kill me.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have you try. And he gives her a knife and has her try to drive it into his neck.
Knowing good and well. Drama.
And she's like,
drama queen,
really reluctant. And then she does it. And then she's like really trying. And the knife just will not actually touch his neck at all.
Yeah. And then we find out, again, very early in the book, something that you think would be held back. But it just comes right out. Oh, yeah, you can't kill me. Because it turns out the only people who can are one of my 11.
Yeah.
Just like puts it right there on a page.
Yep. And when he says one of my 11, she says, what are the 11? Why does everyone keep talking about them? And he's like, wow, you are really good at acting. And this is when Thaddeus is like, I don't think, or I think it's Thaddeus. Thaddeus is how you say it. Thaddeus is like, she's not acting. Oh my God, that's genius. She didn't tell her anything. So there's no way to like stop this now. And Nawusi, I think, is the consort who gave birth to the prince.
Oh yeah, that's this like the mom who's like this girl can't be here. Get her out of here right now. I will never let her. Like, yeah, okay. What's
Murder
the name of the?
Is in that child's blood, she whispered, and I shivered.
Yeah.
Sorry, what were you going to say?
I was going to say someone who comes to her defense is the griot, whose name is like Mbali, maybe?
Mbali, yes.
Okay. And that's
Griot is how you say that.
And that's who comes and like saves her from the apple.
Yeah.
Okay.
She was Swannian and the loveliest person I had ever seen. Her coily curls were shorn close to her scalp, and gold powder shimmered on her high, dark cheekbones. Dots of white paint adorned the bridge of her nose and arched above each eyelid, and the pelican pendant worn by priests of Am twinkled on her willowy neck. Lupita Nyong'o. I'm sorry, it's Lupita Nyong'o, and that's all I can picture every time I think about Mbali. And I don't have an actor in mind for everybody, but that is definitely who Mbali is in my head.
I wonder if this is coming to TV or movies.
Netflix has a deal with one of the writers from
Get Out.
Westworld.
Oh,
yeah.
Fun.
Gina something. I can't remember her last name because I was just reading about it today. They signed the deal in 2021, and other than the deal happening, I haven't found anything else about what's going on with it. So, considering how fucking flaky Netflix is about their
especially
series
lately,
yeah,
all kinds of
I don't know what to think
canceled, and all across the board, streaming devices everywhere are just like canceling shit. They're canceling shit that's already done and filmed and in a can.
And not releasing it. What is that? Ugh, don't get me started. We have to stay on task. We only got like 20 minutes left. So yeah, Mbali is just like, we're not having her eat the fucking poison apple. What is wrong with you guys? And when they ask that, first they're trying to be like, oh, well, she doesn't have a halo because you can't just like make somebody be born with that. So that's our out. And then Tarisai is like, if by halo you mean I can touch people and read their minds, I do have that.
As a matter of fact, I'm glad you asked.
Yeah, and it turns out like some people train their kids to do really difficult things and then try and pass that off as a halo.
All kinds of like reciting poems and knowing like all kinds of weird trivia and just all kinds of shit. And they're all like, yeah, what are you going to do to impress us? Play some drums? Juggle? I think one of literally is like, are you going to juggle?
So she touches her, and the first thing she sees is her and Thaddeus.
Mm-hmm.
And they're hooking up.
And she is like, I don't care for this.
Yeah, Tarisai bounces right out of that and is like,
I don't like it.
I didn't see anything that time.
That's like the second time, too, this has happened, where she's seen like weird adults doing shit and she doesn't know what it is. She doesn't know what it means. She's just like, yeah, no, thank you. Which, granted, I ended for that.
And then she recites the story.
Because she's like, yeah, you told a story last night and the Emperor got mad. And they were all like, oh, she could have heard that from a servant. And so then they have her like recount the whole story, which she does. Yeah.
Very, like, just such a poignant story. Oh my God.
It really is.
He burns her branches. The neighbors were wrong, he says, as the blaze grows high. This tree is nothing without me.
Man. Nothing without me. You need me to water you. You have nothing if I don't come out here and take care of you. And then the minute you start blossoming and like performing and being better than what I thought you could be, I'm just going to cut you. I'm going to cut you down because you don't get to do that. I feel like that's the whole story right there. The whole story of the book is right there in that mango tree. I just don't know it yet.
Or perhaps a seed survived the flames. Whoosh. See it drift on the wind and fly where the boy cannot find it. See it take root in the earth. See children lounge in its shadow. See as the boy's name is forgotten.
Somebody tried to cut the lady down. But she says the boy's name is forgotten. And the fact that the Emperor gets so mad, I don't know exactly what happened, but I know it's his fault. That might just be Misandry talking. I'm not sure, but yeah, I feel like it's his fault. Because why would he get so mad at that story? I mean, the story was told in the confidence of just his 11, right? Those are his closest people. Those are the people he's connected to psychically, on a soul level, everything, right? And he got so mad when she told that story. Why? Was it too close? Good question. Yeah. All you emperors.
The conclusion Mbali comes to is, if she has a halo, we have to give her a chance, because the only way we can guarantee she never uses it to hurt Dio is if she is bound and loyal to him.
This is very interesting, right? Which I feel like the lady had to see this coming as well. Because you send this little girl in, they know who she is the minute they look at her, because she's your spitting image. They're going to want to get rid of her as fast as they can. But due to like the sort of like the circumstances of what we do here, they can't just dismiss her without cause.
Right.
So Then you figure if the lady is as smart as she thinks she is, then the lady says, maybe they will agree to have her on a council because they think that's the safest place for her. Because once she's on the council of 11, she's sort of like in, I don't know, psychically linked to the prince, where his well-being is the most important thing to her.
Right.
So maybe that's the best way to like nullify her. And so she's not dangerous. Is the lady this smart? It's early in the book, y'all. I'm willing to say yes. I don't know much about her.
And when Tarisai is like, how do you all know her? Like, was she a candidate and failed? She failed in every way, Olubade intoned. She was not aspiring to be a council member.
That's what a man would say.
Then why did she? It's no use bringing up the past. And Bali said briskly, you write your story, not the people who came before you. Come.
She was not aspiring to be like a council person. Was she aspiring to be the ruler? Was she aspiring to be empress, to be in charge? Was she too big for her britches? Because
she seemed to have some big ass britches already. I don't know.
I mean, I feel like she deserves those britches. She's doing a lot of big things. She's having sex with genies and making wish babies. Who else doing that? But yeah, like, is it just that she felt like I'm better suited to rule and you just get to rule because you're the man and you wear this like little shield that gets passed down from man to man to man, and that's not fair. Is that the only thing that makes you in charge? And then next thing you know, they're cutting her branches off. I don't know. It's early, y'all.
So she gets led off into the next sort of like test, but it's also just a sort of relaxed situation where they're playing hide and go seek.
I think they call it like the happiest place ever. It's just like a bunch of children playing in this giant room. And they're all like free and giddy and laughing. And the prince is hiding and they can't find him. No one's really looking for him. And then our girl walks in and she's like, yeah, he's not in here.
Yeah. And it's not her Hallow.
Nope.
She has hidden so many times that she knows the way he would choose to hide. Yep. And he chooses a room that's very open and has a lot of windows and not a lot of furniture, because somebody glances in, it seems like there's no place to hide and they just move on quickly.
I love it.
And let's see. Don't worry, I won't tell the others. Then I drew back the curtain. A young Oluwani boy stood before me, parting his full lips into a curious, familiar smile. I saw red. It tore through me, and my pulse thrummed with the same word over and over and over and over. Kill.
I wasn't ready for it to be that like vicious and that visceral and that like to overcome her in that way.
It's like she's a Terminator that just locked on.
It's just fucking like engage. When her mother places that command in her, when she first shows up at the council meeting and they ask her, I think they ask her very pointedly, like, did your mother send you to kill? And she's like, she doesn't say no, because they say his name. And she says, I didn't even know his name until today. You know, like the prince's name. I was like, oh, are they going to like ask a follow-up question? Because that seems weird that they would just leave that on the table like that. And I didn't know what to make of that. Like, was maybe the command so layered that it wasn't going to pop out for years, right? That's what I was thinking. I was like, well, maybe it's just like so submerged, I won't see it till halfway through the book. But then, as soon as she lays eyes on him, comes rushing up. I was so surprised that it was that intense, that soon. Because when she makes it through the initial questioning, I was like, how did they not know the mom like put that command in her? So I was
she
really,
didn't
really
do
surprised.
it with his name. She just showed her his picture.
Yeah.
And that was like what embedded in her head, so that when they said, "Are you here to kill Dio?" she could say no with total honesty.
She was like, "Yeah, I didn't even know his name until you just said it."
Mm-hmm.
But so I'm really curious, like, how do we move forward if every time she looks at him, that like bubbles up in her? I don't know how she works around that. I feel like the lady has a plan though. I mean, you know, like she's not going to just be undone by this. This seems like a very well thought out plan that she's put a lot of energy and time into. So there's got to be a workaround. I just don't know what it could possibly be.
Yeah. Oh, and one other thing that I had meant to mention is just the moment where Tarisai gets very jealous of the connection between the lady and Win, because she touches his face. She like cups his cheek, and Tarisai is like, "What the fuck?" Yeah. And she says that he looks at her with this like hunger. So there is like a really intense connection going on there. And he also says, "I believe in this cause."
There's a bit where she catches him. I think he's looking out a window, and she sees him from behind, and he's shaking, and she realizes that he's sobbing. And then he flies out the window because his hollow is flight.
Yeah.
And we find out that Kathleen can do like change appearances. So
and
when they're
change other people's appearances,
right? So they're like
which feels way too OP. Is that insane? It's one thing to be Mystique, and it's another thing to be Mystique and Mystique other people. Right? That's just too much.
So
Wuin's just sitting there minding his business, and then he opens his mouth and talks, and he's got a lisp, and he's Kathleen, and he's like, "Oh,
what the fuck again?"
I just truly.
So that it makes me very excited to see what everyone else's hollows are. Like, if we're just out here doing this kind of shit, like, what else can everybody else do?
Yeah, good question.
Who do we meet on the council? So we meet the Emperor. We meet the prince's mom, Nawasi.
I think that's how you say. I'm going to go back and just double check.
We meet
Thaddeus,
and the storyteller. Mm-hmm. We know that Mbali and Thaddeus are engaged in some sort of coupling because of the images that she got when she touched her. But that's 4 people. So there's still there's a bunch of people that we haven't met yet that are on like the Council of 11. There's the bit about the pendant that protects them, that keeps them safe, that gets passed down. I'm trying to see if there's anything else that we missed.
I can almost guarantee there is.
There probably is, but we'll circle back around to it. But I'm really, really excited, you guys, about this book. I really am. I can't wait to see where this is going. And it has just been so delightful to read a story like this, set in a place I never would have expected, filled with people that, low-key look like me. They don't all look like me, but some of them do. And just how neat that was. So yeah, I'm stoked.
I'm really just, everybody, FYI, normally I try and do like around 50 pages per recording, but I recall when originally recording this was commissioned by Ashley. We tried 50 pages per episode, and it was too much. It's very dense. So I'm doing around 40 pages. And so the next episode, I'm going to just double check and see here. But it's not letting me click on it. Why is it like this? Fucking Crowdcast lately. Oh, here it is. So this is 1 through 4. Then we're going to do 5 through 7. And then the third one's just 8 and 9. Because I almost tried to do 1 through 5. And look, it took us the entire time to just get through 1 through 4. So I think that was a good call.
Yeah.
And also just an FYI that I am going to be taking there's a 3rd February, because we're recording these on Fridays. And I was going to have there be a recording on Friday the 27th, or no, Friday
I need to give you my birthday date
24th. And yeah, I remember that your birthday is on the 22nd, so I canceled that one. So we're going to have the 17th, and then it's going to jump to the 3rd, and there won't be a recording on the 24th. So just those of you who, some people, plan around coming to the recordings, and I just want y'all to be aware of that. But yeah, I'm really, really excited. These books are, and the second one, I had wondered if Ashley was going to commission it, so I held off reading it. And finally, Ashley was like, "I'm sorry, I'm just not going to be able to pull that off right now." So I was able to just mainline it. And it had been a while since I read the first one, and I was kind of like, I wonder if this is still going to hit. Yes, it did. It was so good.
I can't wait.
Yeah, you're in for a real treat here, I think.
I'm super excited. I loved it so much. I really am excited to get into this. I'm almost sad there's only 2 books, but I'll take it.
I know. Yeah, I was kind of feeling that way too.
Yeah. And then we're doing Cradle after this, right? Which is like 100 books, so I guess I won't be too mad.
Cradle's like it's I think 12 books.
Oh my god.
And the first few of them are pretty short. They're quick. They move, so it won't feel like it's not going to be like Dresden was. Just
which Dresden like that back at some point.
Eventually, someday. So is Ted Lasso, though. We're gonna have to figure that out.
Yeah. I haven't clicked any articles, but Google keeps telling me that the new season has been announced. I just haven't had the heart to click on anything.
Same.
Because I clicked so many that were clickbait that were nothing that I just stopped clicking on anything.
Here's what we know about season 3 of Ted Lasso, and then it's just nothing.
A bunch of nothing. So
fucking 6 paragraphs. They just like wind you up with all this is what happened at the end of the last season. These are the people who write it. This is when it got rebooked and nothing else.
Yeah.
Do you know, what is it with these, like, there's these whole websites now that are just like, I'm going to describe to you a Reddit post.
That's the whole thing. And maybe like
I'll just go read the fucking Reddit post.
How is this your job? But then I remember it's not a job. They're not paying people to do this. This is interns. Yep. This is free labor. No one is getting paid for this. It's just content to fill bullshit. And they're not paying anybody for it. And I refuse to click on it. Pay people.
Pay people. Pay me. At patreon.com/unspoiled.
Well done.
See how I did that?
Well done. Very nice.
Smooth.
Professional.
Professional. All right, everybody. Well, thank you all so much for listening. I hope that those of you who, weren't necessarily like going to pick this book up until you saw we were covering it, I hope that you're enjoying it. Interested to hear if anybody's reading along with us, because I know a lot of people who like intend to do that and then they just go ahead and read all of it right away anyway. So, here we go. Cloak says I'm reading along. Sweet. Yay. RoShawn's distracted here because her light went out.
Yeah, you see that?
She's down there. Girl, I'm wrapping up. You don't have to worry about your light. It doesn't matter. We're done.
I was in the dark, though. I didn't like it.
At least it didn't come, like, pelting forward like mine did earlier. Just... Y'all. All right. Well, we will see you next week with a new episode. Until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye, guys.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.